Hello and welcome to part 4 of the ongoing AS at A level Python series. And in this episode, we are going to be looking at data types. So Python being a dynamically typed language, it means that you do not need to declare a variable before making use of it. And this means that you do not need to specify the data type, as it were, in order for you to use it, like something that you might be familiar with in pseudocode. Right. So how then does Python know which type of data type a particular variable is or a particular value is? So this is actually the job of the interpreter, right? It is actually determined, or it is actually established upon runtime. So what you have to do just as a programmer is you just need to declare your variable, then assign a value to it, and the interpreter is going to take care of the various data types that should be assigned to which values. But that doesn't mean that you cannot make use of you cannot specify what data type that you want to store inside of a particular variable. So let's just go ahead and look at that in action, so how you can go about it. So you might remember that we have 5 primitive data types in programming from your pseudocode, right? So we want to look at how to declare. The first data type is an integer, which is a positive or negative or number. So let's have maybe first let's declare a variable called age, and we can set this one to 14, right? Yeah, which is a valid age for a person. Then you can also have another value, another variable, a negative integer, something called maybe sub-zero. Maybe you're talking about a temperature that is minus 5 degrees Celsius. So you can actually declare that as well. Then we can also declare a variable of data type real or a float, as it were. So for a float, maybe you can have a variable called price. Maybe this is $20 or 120, as it were. Then you can also it can also be a negative decimal number, right? Like maybe say what can I think of? I can't really think of a variable name, but basically it's going to be let me just call it test. I don't know why I'm writing test, but maybe it could be negative 15.3, right? That's another variable that you can declare of type real, data type rather, of type real. Then you can also declare a boolean. So remember, a boolean is actually going to be a value that can only assume either one of two values. So it's either going to be true or false. So it's registered in this case is a boolean value, and the value that I've set is what is true. Then I can also have another variable called is not registered, and I can set this one to false. So it's important to notice how we write true and how we write false in Python. Notice that I'm making use of the capital letter word T for true and the capital letter F for false, is it? Then another data type that we can encounter in Python is something that's called a character, right? And maybe I can say currency. I have a variable, an identifier called currency symbol. Then inside of it, I put a $sign. So that's how you can declare a variable of type character. Then you can also declare a variable of type, finally you can also declare a variable of type string. And the string could be something like maybe username, which is equal to tray, is it? So that's something that you can actually do in Python. So that is for the 5 basic data types. So it's important to notice that for an integer you can store very large numbers as well as for reals and floats. And for characters, it's important to notice the use of the single quotation marks, is it, and just one character within the quotation marks as well. Then for the strings, you can make use of double quotation marks, and you can have a character array, as it were, within the quotes, right? Then one thing that I should also mention is that in Python, remember I said that Python is a loosely typed language, or it's a dynamically typed language. So basically, if I were to declare a name, right, like maybe say Brad, right? Actually, let me do it the way that I intend to show you. This is still going to work in Python. right? So I'm just going to print name there, and you see that it outputs what? It outputs brand. So whether you put single quotes or double quotes, it's not entirely required by Python, but it's just up to convention. So the programming convention has always been to use single quotes for characters and double quotes for strings. So you need to realize that what I did here on line 20 right here, it's something that you would want to avoid as a programmer, because single quotes, in as much as the code might work, single quotes are usually reserved for what? For characters, right? As we have going on line 16 there. So you always want to make sure that for characters you put single quotes, and for strings you put double quotes. Not that your code will not work, but it's just convention, right? And it's always a good idea to follow a programming convention for your chosen programming language. So I think that's just about it for the basic data types. Of course, remember the values, they're not just limited to these ones that we have going on in the examples. Like for instance, an integer, you can have a very large number on the scale of billions, if not trillions, right? And it's still going to work. Same goes for negative whole numbers as well as for real or floating point numbers. But for booleans, this is the only two values that can be assumed. And for characters as well, just take care to always have single quotes. And for strings, just always make sure that you have double quotes. All right, so that's just about it. I'll see you in the next one.